Hey everybody, welcome to August 2018, your questions answered. I get a lot of questions from all over the place online and then in person as well. I'm going to put in the questions that I get here on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, I don't get too many questions on Facebook because usually the people there know me, so I get them in person. Anyways, I've got all of my questions organized here on my tablet, so I'm going to go through here and give you guys my input on some of the things that I have probably answered already, but it's kind of hard sometimes to type everything out. It's easier just to say it. So if your question's in here, and I'll put all the questions down below in the description in case you may not even be interested in this whole video. So anyways, okay, so let's get started. Question number one, Virginia says, it seems to me all the horses want to be as close to the woods in back as possible because it's cooler there. Also, the other horses are there as well, and it's further from the noisy road and it's peaceful. You're correct, absolutely. I do believe that the horses would prefer to be back further. It's a little bit quieter. The forest, when it's really hot in the summertime, the forest is much cooler back there. But on the flip side, there are a few more bugs that sort of live back there, especially mosquitoes when it's mosquito season. And now we're back into a little bit more fly season, less mosquitoes. But it's true. And more than that though, depending on where the other horses are. Currently we only have 5 horses here and 2 at the front, 3 at the back at the time of the video that I did. And the horses that we might put in the arena, if there's 2 or 3 at the back, then the ones at the front will want to go to the back. If I take the ones out of the back and the other ones are at the front, then those guys will kind of crawl up to the front and hang out there because that's where the other horses are. Which is really, really interesting to watch. It's really interesting to see because, you know, each group of horses, and it doesn't matter who they are, if one's at the back or one's at the front, doesn't matter who they are, they'll try to be with each other. They'll herd up, and so it's really neat to see. So there's a few things to think about for sure: the environment, whether it's hot or cold, whether there's bugs, whether there's some obstacles in the arena that they want to stay away from. They might go to the back, but I have tried to put obstacles in the back and they still stay back there. So it's good for their minds. They get used to the obstacles. So yeah, I want to put a few thoughts in. So that was my first one. Okay. I did a video on checking the poops when you go out for horsey check in the morning, especially because they've been sort of free to do what they want all night. And, somebody said, it's a very good question, by the way, how do you know who's pooping if you've got more than one horse in there? And I couldn't agree with you more. If you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if you have so many horses in there, you'll never know. 2, not so bad. 3, maybe you'd be all right. Mainly because horses are habitual and some horses have a very specific spot where they'll go. The other thing about them is that each horse has sort of got its own color and size and then consistency. So I can usually tell based on the fact that I watch them every single day, and that's just the way. You're not gonna be able to walk into some other person's farm and be able to tell. You have to be there for a little bit, and so usually it would be just placement. For example, baby Gracie's poops are a little bit smaller. If she's with Peggy, Peggy's are bigger. If you have the same size horses, then you might get confused, but you just do your best. You do your best to find out, well, who's going where and how much are they and are they eating properly? Because if you put more than one horse in, then there's a chance that they're going to fight for that food. And when they do, one might not get food. So you're going to want to know. We've had some horses here and one of them really got sent on its way. Couldn't really eat very much. We had to separate them in the end. But the first little bit, we kind of noticed, that horse isn't going poop so much. So really great question. Hard to tell. You just kind of have to get used to it. I've had this question a few times. I thought I'd cover it again. Do the bears ever bother the horses on the property? The answer is no. It would be really, really unusual to see bears go after a horse. 2 reasons, or more than 2 reasons, but at least 2. 1, there's fencing. The bears aren't going to really make a big effort to go into somewhere, I believe. And two, horses are much bigger than bears, and they would have to be super hungry to be bothered to go after them. The horses do pay attention. They do see them. The bears do walk around. We've seen them in the forest. I've seen them kind of go through the back way, and they just kind of travel on through. But this came up in the video about the pear tree, and the bears do come up, and they come up the driveway, and they'll eat the pears at nighttime, and so the horses will pay attention to that, but the bears don't bother them. So we don't ever really worry about that. The bears are just hungry. You know, there's a few fruit trees around here. A great question, and that question was by Kathy, and the previous question about how do you tell which horses pooped was by New Paths Horse Sanctuary, new subscriber. And if you guys have a chance to check out that channel, go for it. She's doing lots of stuff helping horses out. So, Shelpin asks a great question. Says a question. We did a book review here, and I said, you know, if you guys have any books for me to review, if you're curious, let me know. And so this is it. Yes, a question, not a book, but an approach. DownUnder Horsemanship with Clinton Anderson. Your thoughts? So I responded to this. If you're wondering, I'll put the book review video link in the description if you want to see my answer in text that I put. Responded a couple times, and the first response from Shelpin here says, because I said some good, some bad, I'll take some time to figure it out and make a little video about it. So I'm going to try to respond in a second. And so the response was, sure, it is. It is very different to your horsemanship, almost opposite, I'd say. But are there any redeeming qualities with the down-under approach? I'm a novice and an impressionable one. I'm thinking to learn how to ride, and I'm interested in your thoughts on Clinton Anderson. And it's hard for me to go back through all of the videos or all the material that he puts out. He puts out a lot of stuff. My personal opinion, just me personally, when I watch his material, there's too many ads for his own thing. Like, so I start to get impatient. And I hear that about myself too. People are, oh, you get so distracted, and they get impatient with what I'm doing. So I found that kind of took away, and I paid less attention. But when I watched a few of the videos to see what he was talking about, what he was doing, I agree with a significant portion of what he's doing and what he's saying and the concepts around it. Now, I don't have the time or patience to go through every video out there that he's doing. So if you have something that I can look at and you think that is way different than what you do, what do you think of that? I'll definitely check it out, and I can get back to you. But for the most part, the way he's been talking, I mean, I've only checked over the last 6 months to 8 months or so of videos, just, you know, a few here and there. The things that he talks about make a lot of sense to me. And the approaches that he takes or seems to take in his videos make a lot of sense. I like them. So far I don't see that as very different than what I do. But maybe it is to you, and if you feel that way, if anybody feels that way, feel free to approach me and say, hey, isn't this better? Or is this worse? Or what do you think about the difference? And I'll be happy to answer. Overall, pretty cool. I'd like to meet the guy, you know. Probably be interesting to sit down and chit-chat with him. Richard says, hey, great job as always, and very timely for me as I've been looking at options for making an arena. What type of sand did you use and how deep is it? Well, Richard, it's a big question. Doing an arena is hard work, and you really have to plan it out. But I can say, and I'll do a more in-depth video of this, but I can say for sure that the work put into an arena, the foundational work put into the arena, will definitely pay off. The more you put in earlier, the more it'll pay off later. If you kind of rush the beginning, the foundation, and the grading and the planning part of it, for sure you're going to suffer later. So I'll start off just with that. Second thing is the materials used, the underneath, the way underneath is material just from here, dirt and clay, rocks and stuff. You want to get that graded as best as possible. It should be as flat as possible. And I learned this later, after we'd sort of gone a little too far. The guy that I'd hired wasn't experienced enough with this. So I learned that a little bit more later. It's a lesson learned that I would happy to pass on. And so you want to make sure that's super graded, really flat. and really packed down. After that, the material used, you want to put some filter cloth or very thick landscaping fabric in, because you want to separate the clay and the dirt or the material that it's already there from your hard pack material that you're going to buy. And so once that cloth is down, and you're going to have to overlap it, you want to overlap at least a foot, 16 inches or so, meaning 30 to 45 centimeters if you're in the metric system, and make sure it's nice and flat. And then when you put your material on, the next material you want to put on is what's called a road base. Now, road base is stuff that it's very fine gravel to very small rocks, and they're usually they usually pack down really well. It's called a road base because it's the base for the roads that we use around here. And that goes down first, and then a big roller comes along and squishes it down, and they put water on, and it goes down. It's practically concrete, other than there's no concrete material in it that makes it stick together. And so once you've done that, and you've got it really settled in, and I would take your time for this one, get the biggest machine you can buy to get that job done. And then after that, you're going to put in, depending on what you want to do, I've only put in, on mine, it's an average of about 2 inches depth. Some people will put in more, 3 to 4 inches, but I find that that is probably not going to fit my needs, and I do believe that being quite deep is hard on the horse's feet. It's also hard to walk in. I do a lot of groundwork, so mine is not very deep, 1 to 2 inches, meaning, I don't know, 2 to 6 centimeters or so, something like that. Is that right? Might be right. It's 2.54 centimeters to an inch, 2.5 inches, or 2.5 centimeters to an inch. So yeah, 2.5 to 5 centimeters or so, 6 maybe, And that's going to be a washed sand. Do not use river sand, don't use beach sand, don't use just, I have heard some people use a mixture of sand, pieces of rubber, or pieces of sawdust or something like that to help keep a little moisture in there. You can also use, from my understanding, sand and a coarser material like crushed gravel, really, really fine crushed gravel. You can use that as well. But I would believe that that would sort of pack down a little bit better than sand. Don't use river sand whatsoever. It is too fine. There's too many tiny, 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 tiny little parts. It just holds water. It doesn't let it go away. So a washed sand is what you want for an arena. It allows you to have that water sort of go through it and out. And drainage is a whole other topic. Our arena here is graded, so we don't have any drainage underneath. The water drains away quite nicely. So I was able to save a little bit of money there. And I don't think I would go backwards on that. I think I made a good decision. So, okay, next question on that one was, would an indoor arena be less work? Well, I did respond to this, but I'll respond in this video here because arena questions come up an awful lot. I would love to have an indoor arena, don't get me wrong, but the structure of an indoor arena is a lot of work. And again, it comes down to how well have you done the foundation. Is it getting rid of water really well? I've seen some arenas where the footing of the building itself is just rotting away. And when that happens, well, it doesn't even matter what's standing up high, whether the roof's good or the supports are any good, because if you don't have a footing, you're done. So I would think that in the beginning, an indoor arena would be much easier. All you have to do is harrow it. It's probably going to be a dirt, not necessarily a sand, although you could use sand just fine. But a lot of people will use dirt, a non-compacting with little rubber pieces in it, kind of dirt. And that works really, really well because it doesn't get muddy. No water gets inside. And so that's a good material to use. So you just have to harrow. You just have to clean up the edges and clean the place a little bit. But with the addition of the structure itself being around, I believe in time, if it's not done properly, it'll be a lot more work. But overall, your day-to-day and month-to-month maintenance should be about the same. You still got to harrow. Here, we just have to clean out the leaves and then drag the sand around a little bit based on erosion from the water. And that's not going to happen in an indoor arena. So a little bit of both, If you do the thing right, it could be just great. You'd have no problems whatsoever. A couple more questions. Do you ever have to worry about sand colic? Same kind of idea. I think I had the horses in the arena or on video. They're eating the leaves. Yeah, sand colic is a big deal. And I've seen some videos out there that are pretty dramatic, where a horse had died and its whole stomach was just about this big, you know, all sand, packed. So it died. Obviously it died. No kidding, it died. I consider that pure negligence of the owner, utter negligence, almost abuse, to not even notice that your horse's belly is like this. It's not really eating. You'd probably be able to look in the poop and see nothing but sand inside of it, if you were to pay attention to that, which goes back to the original video we did about poop. And so paying attention to that kind of thing too. So sand colic, not really here though. We don't feed our horses on the ground. We don't feed our horses in the arena. We don't feed our horses on sand. Them eating a few leaves and having some sand go in at the same time, not a big deal. They don't eat the leaves year round. It's just, you know, a little bit for a few months when they're out and about, but it's not a lot. So I personally don't really worry about it, but we do keep it in mind. It is something we think about. And I have talked to other people who have been feeding their horses in an arena that is sand-based. And I say, well, you might want to put something down, because you don't really want them to ingest sand if you can help it. There are things out there, like extra stuff you can give your horse to help wash that through. But again, if you're feeding them 24/7, if they've always got something going through their body, a lot of times that'll just flush through anyways. And that's what our guys have. 24/7 hay, always clean water. Their system is always moving, which is why they're pooping once an hour. And so that in and of itself can be very helpful for a horse that you suspect maybe has sand problems, has been eating off of sand. Keep feeding them. Feed them, feed them, feed them. Lots of water, lots of food. And it'll slowly work its way out. But talk to a vet, you know, I mean, that's the best thing to do if you think you've got a problem for that. Two more questions. Let's do two more questions. I have another one that I wanted to do, but I might make it a separate one for September, because I get a bunch more questions coming in. But this is a good one. It says, how to introduce a horse to a herd with 20 plus horses. I'm terrified that it will hurt my horse, says Nika. And Jay Lou is the owner of the question before about the indoor arena. Thank you for those questions, everybody. And so she says, you know, how to introduce a horse to a herd with 20 plus horses. They'll hurt my horse. Yeah, there's a very good chance of that. Horses are crazy. Very high likelihood that something will happen. Kicks, bites, falling, running, pulling a muscle. You know, if it's a big pasture, I wouldn't really worry too much. Just send your horse out and they better get moving or off and running. If your horse is injured, has a problem, don't put them out there. Don't set them up for failure from the get-go. But a healthy horse should be able to get away. And a very strong horse, or a horse that wants to be high in the herd, they'll have a little fight. And somebody's going to get some bites and somebody's going to get some kicks. And that is the risk that you have to take by putting them in a situation that is very natural for them. Very natural, very normal. And usually, I usually say, usually within around 5 to 8 minutes, 5 to 9 minutes or so, everything gets figured out. Everybody's got their place. From 1 to 20, 1 to 21. And so you'll kind of watch this, and it may be stressful, but it is very good for them. It's very important that horses be in a herd environment and they have their place there, because they get to exercise their own dominance, and they also have dominance sort of brought on them by other horses that are bigger, stronger, faster, or just plain tougher, just tougher of mind. And, you know, maybe they think they own the place of some sorts. But that's how they sort of be in a herd, and it's very good for their mind because it's quite natural. We don't want our horses hurt, don't get me wrong. If you can't handle that, don't do it then, you know. Keep them separate, which brings us to the next question. It's by Joanne Kim. She says, what are your thoughts on separating horses in different paddocks, but they get to see and hear each other? Great, great idea, especially for horses that don't get along, can't get along, continue to fight. I will be doing a video shortly on Lena. She's been a bit rough on Luke. Her with Macaroni, actually her just with Luke. They don't get along as well, which is interesting because in the beginning, it was Luke that was picking on her and she wasn't able to eat when she first started to come here. So the herd dynamic can change, and it can change based on who they're with, or it can change based on who's come in for a visit and taught some horse something, maybe, And then suddenly this horse is a big horse and bigger than this horse over here because this horse said, hey, you know, don't put up with that. I don't know what they say to each other, but you get what I'm trying to say. And so that herd dynamic will change. And now Luke is more the bottom horse, whereas he used to be top horse compared to Lena. But that isn't the case anymore. So all of our paddocks are open. All the horses can see each other. A lot of them are connected. Some of them directly, so there's only a board in the way. That's kind of hard because they'll sort of wreck that board or fence, whatever it may be. If you do need to keep them, 6 to 8 feet is a good width to have because they're going to reach one horse is going to reach their neck over, the other horse is going to reach them over, and they can kind of just barely touch. That's kind of good. But at the very least, one can reach over, you know, maybe 2 or 3 feet or something. The other one could just say, I'm out. And just walk away and not be bothered, you know, not have to run away and hopefully not feel like they need to kick, because sometimes when they do kick those fences, they just snap them, break them, and then you're done. You got to go fix your fence and hopefully not have to fix your horse. So I'm 100% in agreement with, if you're in an environment, you've got these 20 plus horses or something like that, or you just have a few horses, they're not getting along, your horse is getting hurt, you're going to want to either take out the aggressive horse or you take out the horse that's getting hurt. But separate them. You know, we've put them in an environment that suits us, maybe not them. So we have to accommodate for that. In our case, we do our best to keep an eye on those kinds of things. And so I think it's a great idea. Anyhow, that's all of the questions for now for August 2018. Your questions answered. Thank you for asking, everybody. Thank you for all of your comments again. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this has been interesting. And again, you know, if you have any questions or thoughts, let me know anytime. I'm going to try to do this every month as well. And I'm at the end of the month, so I'm just barely squeaking in. So anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys again really soon.